David Beckham opens up about the highs and lows of his career. And interestingly, it gives fans a glimpse into the influence that his dad had on his love of football. Yeah, I mean, his dad was an absolute fanatic. He admits that he'd have loved to have been a footballer himself, but he got the next best thing, which was, of course, David Beckham, one of the most successful footballers in the world. But as a parent, is it fair to do that? And you see, if you've watched the documentary, we've all watched the documentary, haven't you? My goodness, from the earliest age, as soon as he could toddle, I mean, Dad was determined he was going to be a footballer. Is that fair, Jane?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it's fair to live your dreams for your children. But I think when you see that your child maybe has a talent, I think it's very fair.
He didn't know at 3, did he?
No, but most little boys play football, don't they? They like football. It's not like he was pursuing his dream of, I want you to be a, you know, opera singer or something. So, obviously, early on, he was quite happy to do that. But I think it's like nature and nurture. If you look at people through sporting history, there's always usually a fairly passionate parent in the background. And it's not necessarily about pushing them in terms of ability, but it's about driving them places. Yeah. Or, you know, going to training sessions. You know, a lot of kids might be great at something, but if they haven't got a parent that's happy to either get on the bus or the train or in the car to take them to training, it's not going to happen. So I think there has to be, like, a halfway house.
I guess what worries me about that situation potentially is, I mean, it all worked out, didn't he? David Beckham was talented and he did want to do it.
And I think he'd be very happy that his dad did push him.
But what if David had turned out to be a bit rubbish? You know, and the dad had, you know, really invested in him all this time, and he didn't make it. Then, I mean, that's the more common story, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think I watched the documentary and I thought both David and Victoria's parents installed into them, if you want something, work hard for it. Yeah. So I think even if football hadn't worked out to that level, you can see how they're both so driven in their careers, not just in sport. So I think you can install sort of commitment and discipline into your children. With my eldest, Belle, she showed an interest in running. And me and Richie, we like running too, but we didn't do anything beyond a hobby. And she joined a running club. She got picked to represent the school. She started doing cross-country at county level. And then some Sunday mornings, she doesn't want to get up for a running club, usually the cold, wet mornings. But she loves all the highs of taking in the medals to the school assembly and showing the certificate. And I kind of say to her, look, there are highs and lows in life and you need to experience them all. And I've prepaid for this club and we're going.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And it's teaching her to turn up.
Yeah, and I have to stand there in the rain too, you know.
Whatever the weather.
Whatever the weather, yeah. But if it got to the stage where every week she didn't want to go, even in the nicer, brighter days, I would say, OK, it's time to pack it in, that's fine. Yeah. But I think you need to teach them to sort of stick at something and experience the more challenging parts in life as well as the reward and the attention.
I think it is a balance. I must admit, I mean, I let my kids just kind of go... They tried everything from karate to swimming to gymnastics to whatever. Tennis, well, of course, Ian's a tennis coach. He never pushed them at all. And they're both quite decent tennis players. And, I mean, if he'd have been out there doing the ball day in, day out, I think they would have become, you know, pretty decent tennis players. I'm not saying they would have been at Wimbledon. But he just didn't do that at all. And I think, to be honest, it's because he's seen so many parents who come out there with the big tennis bags and they're over this 8-year-old
and they're screaming at the kids.
Yeah, and usually it doesn't really end particularly well. No. So he went in completely the opposite direction.
And I think you can see when a child... I mean, if you look at... I love looking at footage of high-achieving sports people when they were young, and you can see, even when it's their class football game, they're literally going through everybody like a knife through butter.
Yeah, there he is there. We had it, Beckham. But, well, certainly Ian always says it's not... The talent is obviously hugely important. They've got to have the talent, but more important than the talent is the kid themselves has to want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, to reach any kind of elite level.
See, I fell into my career by accident, because at the primary school that I went to was a lady called Anna Scher, and she was an art teacher, and she started taking drama classes in her lunch breaks and after school, and then loads of us in Islington. It was basically to get the kids off the street, like the working class kids off the street. And then we started going to the little drama classes, but I never really wanted to be an actress. And then people from the BBC came down and started picking us because we were known as real kids rather than jazz hand kids and everything. And that was like 55 years ago, and she's still like taking... Well, she's just stopped taking classes now.
But you stuck at it because you loved it.
Yeah,
not because your mum and dad
never saw it as a career for me. They just thought it was like a little hobby. They didn't think anything would ever come from it. And here we are 55 years later and I'm still working, so...